Hello, my name is Manoel Ribeiro, and today I'll present a paper on post-approvals in online communities. This is joint work with my advisor, Robert West, and with Justin Cheng. I'm a PhD student at EPFL, but this work was done mostly while I was interning at Meta in the summer of 2021. I will begin with an anecdote. Although I studied in Switzerland, I was born and raised in Brazil. Therefore, when I first came to Lausanne, I wanted to find other Brazilians to ask questions about where to get Brazilian food. My wife and I found two large Facebook groups, Brasileiros na Suíça in Portuguese and Brasiliens Suisse. The first group was filled with self-promotions and irrelevant posts. Whenever you used the group to ask a legitimate question, you'd mostly fail to be heard, as the stream of posts was just too intense. The second group, however, was much nicer. Although I think there was a substantial member overlap, the group was centered around fewer posts, most of which gathered quite a few useful responses and interactions. In this group, I came to realize that, depending on what I wanted to eat, it was probably cheaper for me to buy a plane ticket back to Brazil. Jokes aside, the big difference between the two groups, I came to realize, came from a setting called post approvals. In the first group, there were rules against submitting spammy posts. But you could just post whenever, and moderators in the group would have to reactively moderate the group. That is, they would have to sort through the group's feed and remove bad or low quality posts. In the second group, however, after posting, you'd have to wait for an approval. Your post would enter a queue of posts that would be reviewed by a moderator and only appear in the group once approved. There, the group was proactively moderated. Anecdotes aside, with previous work, one can reason about the possible trade-offs associated with the enabling of post approvals. On the one hand, post approvals can create well-moderated spaces that are more attractive to users and that may increase the quality and the quantity of contributions. On the other hand, the over-enforcement of moderation can discourage participation, and the feature may burden community leaders with additional moderation tasks, since they now have to review each post individually. In this presentation, I'll focus in one of the research questions we set to explore. How does adopting post-approvals shape these communities, these online communities that we care about? To answer this question, we collected data between March and July 2021 on communities that turned on post-approvals, which we call PA-on, and a random sample of communities that did not change any moderation-related setting. For each community, we consider a plethora of group-level variables, capturing general features of the group, like the group topic, moderation-related traces, like the number of posts reported each day, and activity-related traces, like the daily number of posts in the group. We then used this data in a retrospective cohort study, where we carefully matched communities on group-level variables measured prior to PA-on communities enabling post approvals. We then contrast the outcomes of interest in our matched sample. In what follows, I'll highlight some of the interesting things we found out. In this plot, we show the average number of posts for PA-on communities in red and PA-off communities in blue. Note that the plot is centered around 0. That is the day when half of our sample, the PA-on communities, enable the setting. We can see that for PA-on communities, there's a sudden decrease in the number of posts following the adoption of post approvals, while for PA-off communities, the average number of daily posts remains largely stable. This other plot shows the number of comments per post in the same time frame. We find that as the number of posts decreases for PA-on communities, each post receives, on average, nearly twice as many comments. We also find that posts are reported significantly less by community members. Following the adoption of post approvals by PA-on communities, the percentage of posts reported goes from 0.6% to roughly 0.1%. Last, in the days that followed the enabling of post approvals, we find that community leaders in PA-on communities spend more time moderating their groups. However, after a few weeks, the average time spent becomes comparable to pre-intervention levels once again. Altogether, these findings suggest that post approvals creates communities centered around fewer, higher quality posts, not increasing the average time communities leaders spends in their groups. I hope this presentation sparked your interest, and please check the paper for details about matching and additional analysis, as well as for answers to other research questions about post approvals. We also look into what leads communities to adopt the setting and how communities are differentially affected by it. For example, what's different between smaller and larger groups. Thank you for your time, and please feel free to reach out if you found this presentation interesting.